The phone rang right at 8:47 a.m. on a Sunday. I recognized Jessica's number on caller ID and hesitated for a moment before picking up. My sister rarely called that early, especially on weekends. "Amber, I need to talk about something important," she blurted out without even saying hello. "It's about the new house you and Nathan bought." I sat down at the kitchen chair, looking out the window at the first signs of spring in the garden I was so proud of. I was thinking, since you guys have extra space and our parents need a place to stay, it makes more sense for you and Nathan to leave the house and let me, Tyler, and our parents live there. I almost choked on my coffee. "What do you mean, leave our house? Jessica, we just bought this place." "Yeah, but you know Tyler and I have been struggling. Plus, Mom and Dad would be better off with us. We can pay $1,600 a month to cover the expenses. It's a good deal." Nathan, who was making breakfast, stopped what he was doing and raised his eyebrows at me. "Who's talking about paying $1,700? he asked as he came closer. I put the phone on speaker. Jessica kept insisting that I had always been luckier in life and that it was my duty to help. "Good luck with your $7,000 in monthly expenses," Nathan commented casually as he went back to the stove. The silence on the other end of the line was so thick I thought the call had dropped. $7,000, Jessica finally asked in a choked voice. "That can't be right. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this." I hung up after a tense goodbye and slumped in my chair. Nathan came over and took my hands. "Sorry if I said too much," he said. "Don't worry about it. It was time someone laid it all out. We met 15 years ago in a night class for accounting. I had just turned 22, worked as an administrative assistant, and dreamed of a stable career. Nathan was finishing his master's in civil engineering. In the midst of spreadsheets and calculations, we found something neither of us was looking for: each other. We got married 2 years later in a simple ceremony, followed by a decade of rented apartments, saving every penny for our dream, a house of our own with enough space to start a family. We never got any financial help. I worked 2 jobs while finishing college, and Nathan did extra consulting work on weekends. It was pretty common to have mac and cheese for dinner for several days in a row just to save money. Meanwhile, Jessica always expected things to fall into her lap. She dropped out of college in her second year, changed jobs numerous times, and racked up debts that always ended up being my problem. "She always gets over it when she doesn't get what she wants," Nathan said as he poured another cup of coffee. "This time it's different," I replied. "That house represents everything we fought for." 3 weeks later, I got a call from my mom. The building they lived in was going to be torn down to make way for a luxury apartment complex, and they only had 2 months to find a new home. With my dad's health deteriorating after 2 strokes and Mom's advanced arthritis, the news couldn't have come at a worse time. "We're going to figure something out," I promised, looking around our newly bought house. That night, Nathan and I stayed up late discussing the possibility of bringing my parents to live with us. Our house had 4 rooms, ours an office and 2 guest rooms. "We could offer them the bigger room on the ground floor," Nathan suggested. "That way your dad wouldn't have to climb any stairs." "Are you sure? It would mean postponing our plans of having a baby." "Family is family," he replied simply. "We can adjust our plans." The next morning I called my parents and made the offer. My mom cried with relief, and even my dad, usually so reserved, got emotional. For a moment I felt proud to be able to give back everything they had done for me. "Jessica said you were planning to leave the house so we could all live together," my mom said hesitantly. My stomach sank. "That's not true, Mom. We offered you a room in our house. We're not moving out." The silence that followed said it all. A week later, Jessica and Tyler showed up to see our place. It was the first time they had come by since we moved in, 4 months earlier. I watched their expressions as we toured the rooms. Jessica could barely hide her envy behind forced smiles. "It's really spacious," she commented, running her hand along the granite kitchen counter. "It must have cost a fortune." "We worked hard for this," I replied, trying hard not to sound offensive. Tyler whistled when he saw the home office. "Man, imagine having a space just for work. We can barely fit a laptop in our apartment." During dinner, I noticed Jessica discreetly snapping photos of details around the house. When I asked about it, she claimed she was just inspired by the decor. Later, I noticed she'd opened a few drawers in the office while supposedly looking for the bathroom. I feel like they're cataloging everything we have, I told Nathan after they left. You're being paranoid, he replied, though his tone didn't sound entirely convinced. The day my parents moved finally arrived. To my surprise, Jessica and Tyler showed up to help, something unusual since my sister usually avoided any kind of manual work. We're family, she declared, carrying a small box full of pillows. That's what family does. The first few weeks were an adjustment. We transformed the main bedroom on the ground floor into a little apartment for my parents, with its own TV and even a small fridge for their medication and late-night snacks. Nathan installed grab bars in the bathroom and a discreet ramp at the side entrance. That's when I noticed a strange pattern. Jessica and Tyler started showing up without warning, always around dinner time. At first, it was once a week, then 3 times. Soon they were visiting almost daily. We just dropped by to see how your folks are settling in, was their usual excuse, while they helped themselves generously to the meals I prepared. I noticed they always left with something: a borrowed book, tools that Tyler asked Nathan about, containers full of leftovers that Jessica insisted would go bad if left behind. Small things that on their own seemed harmless. One afternoon, I caught Tyler in my office, rifling through my drawers. I was just looking for a pen that works, he quickly justified, closing the drawer where I kept important documents. That night I realized my wallet was short on cash. Not much, only $20, but I was sure of the amount I'd withdrawn the day before. The morning after the incident with Tyler in the office, I decided to make a discreet inventory of items around the house. I created a spreadsheet on my laptop, listing valuable items that we might be losing without even noticing. To my surprise, the list grew fast. First, I noticed my pearl earrings, the graduation gift from my parents, were missing from the jewelry box where I always kept them. Then, the Japanese knife set Nathan had bought for our anniversary was gone. I thought it was odd, but I tried not to jump to conclusions. Nathan, did you see that watch you gave me last Christmas? I asked while we were making breakfast. He frowned, putting the toast on the table. Isn't it in the nightstand drawer? No, I looked everywhere. Maybe you left it in the bathroom or the office, he suggested, but I could hear the worry in his voice. Over the next few weeks, things got significantly worse. The pattern was undeniable. Always right after a visit from Jessica and Tyler, something would disappear. Small items with sentimental or even financial value went missing without explanation. My parents seemed oblivious, or maybe they were pretending not to notice, which bothered me deeply. I tried to bring it up during our Sunday lunch. Mom, did you happen to borrow that memory box from my closet? It had a bunch of old family photos and some of Grandma's jewelry. She avoided my eyes, fiddling distractedly with her food. No, honey. Why would I take your stuff without asking? The most significant disappearance happened on a Thursday. I came home from work and noticed that my tablet with all my work projects on it was gone from the office desk. I searched the entire house while a growing knot formed in my stomach. Nathan, this has gone way too far, I vented when he got home. I have an important presentation tomorrow and all my information was on that tablet. He hugged me tightly, trying to calm me down. We'll sort this out. I'm sure it's somewhere in the house. That night, Jessica called like nothing had happened. We're thinking about coming over tomorrow. Tyler wants to show Dad that new chess app. Mind if I bring that apple pie Mom likes? I took a deep breath before answering. Jessica, by any chance, did you see my tablet? The silver one I use for work. The silence on the other end lasted a few seconds longer than it should have. No, why would I? It hasn't been in your house since the day before yesterday. The lie was obvious. They had visited my parents the night before, when Nathan and I were still at work. My dad confirmed it earlier. Funny, because Dad told me you were here last night. Ah, yay! I completely forgot. It was just a quick drop by. We didn't even go up to the second floor. I hung up feeling betrayed and furious. The disappearances were never coincidences. Later, when I opened the fridge for some water, I noticed that even part of the food I had prepared for dinner was missing. That night, Nathan and I had a long talk in the backyard, away from my parents' ears. The moon lit up our tense faces as we decided what to do. "We need solid proof," Nathan said quietly. "We can't just accuse your sister of stealing without evidence." "I agree. But how are we going to do that without causing a huge family drama?" We spent hours coming up with a plan. Nathan, with his methodical engineering mind, suggested we install discrete cameras in the main rooms of the house. At first I hesitated, feeling guilty about monitoring my own family. But the situation had reached its breaking point. "We're not doing this to hurt anyone," he argued. "We just want to know the truth. If we're wrong about Jessica and Tyler, we'll be relieved to find out." The next day after work, we bought a simple security camera system. Nathan installed them in strategic spots: the living room, kitchen, the upstairs hallway, and most importantly, the office. They were small, almost unnoticeable, and they transmitted footage directly to our phones. "Besides the cameras, we need a lure," I suggested while setting up the system. "What are you thinking?" "Something valuable but not irreplaceable. Something they wouldn't be able to resist taking." I remembered the fake Rolex watch I got as a birthday joke from a coworker. It looked real at first glance, but was only worth $100. "I'll leave it on the dresser, clearly visible, along with a fake insurance note saying it's worth thousands." Nathan nodded, impressed. "Brilliant. And what about your parents? How will we explain the cameras if they ask?" "We'll just say there have been a series of burglaries in the neighborhood. It's not a complete lie. Something valuable is being stolen from our house." In the following days, we kept up a normal routine, as if nothing had changed. I left the watch strategically placed and waited. Jessica and Tyler kept up their pattern of frequent visits, always coming up with inconsistent excuses. One Wednesday, while we were at work, I got an alert on my phone. The office camera had detected movement. My heart racing, I discreetly glanced at the screen during a meeting. I saw Tyler opening drawers, rummaging through papers, while Jessica stood guard by the doorway. I immediately sent the recording to Nathan. His reply was short: "We've got our proof. Let's act tonight." When we got home, everything looked normal. My mom was knitting in the living room. My dad was watching a documentary. There was no sign of the watch on the dresser. "Did Jessica and Tyler come by today?" I asked casually. "Yeah, they brought some treats for your dad," my mom replied without looking up from her knitting. "They were so thoughtful." I exchanged a knowing look with Nathan. The trap was set. Now we needed the final confrontation, on our terms. I called Jessica. "Hey, I was thinking if you and Tyler would like to come over for dinner tomorrow. I'll make that risotto you guys love." Her voice sounded upbeat. I almost believed her innocence. "Sure, what time?" "Around 7. And Jessica, bring a dessert." The clock struck exactly 7 when the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, feeling my hands tremble slightly. Nathan squeezed my shoulder for support before opening the door. Jessica and Tyler walked in smiling, bringing a store-bought pie. My parents were already in the living room, ignoring the tension that was clearly written all over my face. "Great to see you," I said, forcing a smile. "Shall we head to the dining room? Dinner's ready." During the first 20 minutes of dinner, I kept the conversation superficial. We talked about the weather, local news, and the soap opera my mom was watching. Nathan barely touched his food, his eyes flipping between me and the couple sitting across from us. When I served dessert, I finally broke the facade. "Jessica, I've noticed some stuff has been disappearing from our house lately." She froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "What kind of stuff?" "Jewelry, electronics, even food from the fridge." I kept my voice calm, even though my heart was racing. "But yesterday, my Rolex watch was gone from the dresser." Tyler choked on his drink, coughing loudly. Jessica glanced at him in alarm before turning her attention back to me. "That's terrible. You guys really should have security cameras installed." "We already do," Nathan interjected, placing his phone in the center of the table. "Actually, we caught some interesting footage last night." The silence that followed was deafening. My dad looked confused, shifting his gaze from one face to another, while my mom stared fixedly at the tablecloth. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jessica finally said in a less confident voice. Nathan tapped on the phone screen, and the video began to play. It clearly showed Tyler taking the watch and tucking it into his pocket, while Jessica kept watch in the hallway. That's invasion of privacy," Tyler blurted, abruptly standing up. "You can't just film us without permission. This is our house. We can install cameras wherever we want," I shot back as I also stood up. "The real question is, why are you stealing from us?" Jessica began to cry, big dramatic tears. "We weren't stealing, we were only borrowing. We were going to return everything." "Like the pearl earrings? What about the Japanese knives that ended up for sale on Facebook Marketplace last week?" My parents remained silent, which made me even more furious at my sister's denial. "Did you guys know about this?" I asked, turning to my parents. "Did you know that Jessica and Tyler were stealing from us while we were giving them a roof?" My mom swallowed hard. "Amber, you always had more than your sister. Sharing a little shouldn't be a problem." Her words hit me like a slap. "Sharing? Mom, they were stealing. They didn't ask. They didn't even check. They just took what they wanted." "They're just material things," my dad said for the first time. "Family is more important than belongings." Nathan slammed his hand on the table, his patience running out. "Respect is more important than anything," and they showed none. Jessica abruptly stopped crying, her expression turning defiant. "You all have so much and you complain about sharing a little bit. Typical. You've always been selfish." That was the last straw. 15 years of manipulation and one-sided sacrifice exploded inside me. "Get out of my house. All of you. Now!" The silence after my words was total. For a few seconds, no one moved, as if none of us could believe what had just happened. "You can't be serious," my mom finally stammered. "Your parents. You're kicking your own parents out?" Nathan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "You have two choices. Either Jessica and Tyler leave right now and never set foot in this house again, or all of you leave. The choice is yours." I looked hopefully at my parents, expecting them to choose the obvious, staying with us and acknowledging my sister's unacceptable behavior. But what I saw in their eyes shattered something deep inside me. "If Jessica isn't welcome, then neither are we," my dad declared, slowly rising. "We've always been a family. We're not abandoning her now." The hours that followed passed like a slow-motion nightmare. Nathan and I waited in the living room while my parents packed their belongings, helped by Jessica and Tyler. No one spoke to me, as if I were the traitor, not them. When the last suitcase was loaded into Tyler's car, my mom stopped at the door. "I hope one day you realize that family comes before any material thing, Amber. When that day comes, we'll be waiting for your apology." I closed the door without replying and collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained. Nathan sat next to me, holding my hand in silence. "Did I do the right thing?" I whispered, doubt gnawing at me. "You did what needed to be done. You set boundaries. That isn't wrong." In the days that followed, the phone stopped ringing. Text messages, emails, even handwritten letters popped up, all variations on the same theme. I was the villain of the story, the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family when they needed her most. Eventually, we discovered that my parents had moved into the small apartment owned by Jessica and Tyler, a place with only 2 rooms where my dad had to climb 3 flights of stairs every day, without an elevator. A week after the confrontation, I got a call from the hospital. My dad had fallen down the stairs and broken his hip. In the ER hallway, I found my mom and Jessica. "See what you caused?" Jessica accused, pointing at my face. "If they had still been in your house, this would never have happened." I kept my composure, despite the tears threatening to fall. "If you hadn't stolen from us, they'd still be there. During my dad's surgery, I offered our house again, just for my parents, without Jessica or Tyler. My offer was immediately refused. "Either all of us stay together or no one does," my mom declared, her look steely like I'd never seen before. "This is the family you abandoned, Amber." I went back home that night certain that I had lost my birth family, but preserved my dignity and my marriage. Nathan and I agreed to sell the house, too big now for just the 2 of us and full of painful memories. A week later, while we were packing up some things, I found something hidden behind the dresser. My missing tablet, its battery completely dead. It seemed that in the rush to grab the watch, Tyler had dropped the tablet he'd previously stolen. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this. 3 years have passed since that fateful night. The afternoon sun streams through the windows of our new house, smaller than the last, but infinitely cozier. I caress my 7-month baby bump as I watch Nathan assembling the crib in the room that will be for our daughter. We moved to another state, restarted our careers, and slowly rebuilt our life away from the shadows of the past. It wasn't easy to shake the guilt and grief over losing my family, but each day felt a little lighter than the one before. "What do you think of the color of this mobile?" Nathan asks, holding up a delicate carousel of stars and moons. "It's perfect," I reply with a smile. "She's going to love it." The phone rings, interrupting our moment. I don't recognize the number, but I answer anyway. "Amber?" My mom's voice sounds different, fragile, aged. "We need to talk." My heart races, but I keep my voice steady. "I'm listening." "Your dad, he's not well. The doctors say he hasn't got much time left." She pauses, taking a deep breath. He'd like to meet his granddaughter before he goes. What I'd heard over the past few months from mutual acquaintances painted a bleak picture. My parents living in poor conditions, Jessica and Tyler drowning in debt after being evicted from 3 consecutive apartments. "How did you even find out about the baby?" I ask, suspicious. "Your cousin told us. Amber, I know we don't deserve it, but we're desperate. Jessica lost her job again. We can't pay the rent." And there it was, the real reason behind the call. It wasn't about reconnecting or meeting the granddaughter. It was about money, as it always had been. "Mom, I'm really sorry about your situation. I truly am. But that bridge was burned a long time ago. So you're just going to let your own dad die without meeting his granddaughter? What kind of person have you become, Amber?" That question was meant to hurt, to make me feel guilty. Instead, I felt a clarity I'd spent years trying to achieve. I'm the kind of person who had to learn how to protect my family, my husband and my daughter, from people who confuse love with exploitation. After hanging up, I found Nathan waiting by the door, worry on his face. I told him about the call, about Dad, and about the accusations. "Do you want to visit him?" he asked gently. "I'd go with you." I thought for a moment, stroking my bump where our daughter had just kicked. "No, I don't want to expose our daughter to that cycle of manipulation. She deserves to grow up in an environment where love comes with respect, not conditions." Nathan kneeled in front of me, taking my hands in his. "Are you sure? I don't want you to regret this later." "Absolutely. Family isn't just about blood ties. It's about who's by your side through the tough times, who respects your boundaries, who celebrates your victories without envy." As the sun set, I cast one last look at the silent phone. There was a sadness there, a mourning for what might have been, but also peace. The peace of finally understanding that some doors need to stay closed so other ones can open. Our daughter will be born into a home where she learns that generosity doesn't mean letting people take advantage, that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation, and that true love never comes with a price tag. This is the family we chose to build. This is the legacy we'll leave. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get access to more stories like this.